shall be called Emmanuel, which means God with us. It's still a mystery to me, God being with us. How about you? In his book, What We Talk About When We Talk About God, Rob Bell suggests that what it means that God is with us is that Jesus connects us to the sacred depth, holiness, and significance, and the meaning that's in every moment, in every day. My friend Kurt has Alzheimer's. I know Kurt because he was the guy they told us about at seminary. Seminary is where you go to school to learn how to be a pastor. They said you're going to graduate and be ordained and go to your first church, and you're going to be all full of yourself and think you kind of know everything, and then you're going to meet someone who's going to show you exactly what it means to have faith. That's who Kurt was. Some nearly 30 years ago. I got to know him especially well because I had walked with him and his wife during a very debilitating illness that she suffered from. And Kurt asked me, even though I was the baby pastor of the church, to help with her funeral when she suddenly died. I got to know him especially well about a year and a half later when his 21-year-old son died in a car accident. Sometimes it's hard to know that God is with us. When Kurt was 14, he told his mom, "Dad has to go." 14 years old, and he says, "Mom, Dad has to go." His dad was an alcoholic who was abusive of his mom. And Kurt said, I'll get a job, I'll help out, but Dad has to go. And somehow, all of 120 pounds and 14 years old, Dad went. Dad was gone. Kurt says, after that, I was pretty much on my own. Mom had her own issues. I was to discover years later when she was diagnosed with schizophrenia what that was all about. But after age 14, I was pretty much on my own. I said, "Kurt, how did you do it? How did you find your way?" He wasn't sure. But when he was in second grade, he thinks it must have been some relatives who knew that it was chaotic at home. I was enrolled in a Lutheran school, and it was pretty strict, and there's a lot of discipline. And it seemed like most of that discipline was happening to me, he said. But I knew it was good for me. I knew they were right. Maybe that's what helped me get through. He learned values there that stuck with him forever. That God with us means that every moment and every day is connected to sacred depth and holiness and meaning and significance. Can kind of go above our heads in our daily life. The wheels keep turning and they go on. As Rob Bell says, we wake up and we eat, we go to work or school and exercise or the grocery store, return emails, walk the dog, call the insurance agent, take the kids to soccer practice, write the term paper, watch the game, mow the lawn, go to the dentist, book the flight, all the above, all without forgetting to water the plants, pick up the eggs on the way home, remembering to fill out the expense report, wash the clothes, brush the teeth, go to sleep, wake up, and do it all over again the next day. It can seem that way. Then sometimes we're given eyes to see and ears to hear that God with us connects every moment and every day to sacred depth and holiness, significance, and meaning. The job that Kurt got when he was 14 was bagging groceries. He'd bring the money home to his mom. He did that throughout high school. And tried to pay his way as best he could. When he graduated from high school, a shift supervisor of the grocery baggers said, "Kurt, you should go to college." Kurt had never really thought about that. He said, "I didn't really know what college was. I went to the only college I knew about." I walked into the admissions office. I said, "I want to go to school here." He didn't know that college from a junior college, if he'd even known what a junior college was, let alone know that it was described as the Harvard of the Midwest, Washington University in St. Louis. "I want to go to school here," he told the admissions representative. And she said, "You don't just enroll here. Do you have your high school transcripts?" Well, that was a problem, because even though he had good structure up through the 8th grade, he was pretty much on his own after that in high school, and it showed on his report card, he said. He went back to that admissions person. "I want to go to school here." She looked at his transcripts, but then she smiled and said, "Have you taken the ACT?" He said he didn't know what an ACT was. He took the ACT. Must have done pretty well. 4 years later, he graduated with a degree in finance from Washington University and entered the corporate world and advanced through the corporate world and worked hard in a Fortune 500 company in the top of this high-rise building in Dayton, Ohio. I stood there as a 26, 27-year-old pastor, and I wondered, what do I have to understand your life? He did really well, and he retired at 55. Now he's 75, and he's in perfect health, except he has Alzheimer's. You'd hardly know to visit with him. You might pick up some short-term memory things, but they discovered it when he started having trouble with vision in one of his eyes, and he did test after test after test, and finally they said, it's not your eye. It's something in your brain. So I spent hours with him at Thanksgiving. We talked about a lot of things, and he said, for the first time in my life, I don't know what to expect. I don't know what to do. I don't know what the next step is going to be. It feels like everything's out of my control. When we stop and reflect on our lives, I wonder if there's anybody here who can relate to experience of not knowing what to expect and what's next. I wonder if anybody here has something that's out of their control. And I wonder if Kurt was right. Was it really for the first time in his life that he didn't know what was next and what was going to happen and what was going to become of him? Or was there really something in the generous relatives that enrolled him in school, in the kindly elders and teachers that taught him self-discipline, in the wise shift supervisor who said you should go to college, or the kindly registrar that told him to take the ACT, or the shoe shine. I don't have time to tell you about the shoe shine. You might want to read about it. I think we put the story on our Facebook, if I can get this to advance. I'm not having any luck here. If you know how to do Facebook, just put Atonement Muskego in the search, and there's a story about Kurt and a shoe shine. It can seem that way in life. That it's just one thing after another without a whole lot of purpose. But just maybe you and I are the generous relative, or the elder that loves enough to provide structure, the wise supervisor, the kindly registrar, or the shoe shine. When I was no longer a baby pastor, about 6 years into being a pastor, I began to pursue what I'd wanted to do for a long time, and that was try to be useful in the inner city. Knowing that life in really poor neighborhoods is especially tough, and it's tough to find churches that can root there. And so I came to Milwaukee to All People's Church, 2nd and Clark, to plant a church. And I really wanted one thing for those children and those single parents to discover that because God was with them, every moment of every day is connected to holiness and sacred depth and meaning and significance. And I was 2 years into that adventure, and I just about fell out. I hit the wall. I was breaking down. I was pretty sure I wasn't going to make it any further. And the phone rang, and it was Kurt. Now, he'd been taking interest in that ministry. Individually, because we didn't have a membership, we relied on the contributions of others. Personally, he'd send as much as $7,000 a year. Must have heard that we weren't doing well emotionally. He said, "Tell me what's going on." I told him about the work. I told him about the grind. I told him about how hard it was. Day after day, day after day. He said, "Greg, you can't just keep working without stopping. You got to take some breaks. You and Ann," he's talking about my wife and I, "you and Ann have to get away. I mean, away, not just a weekend. You got to get away, get refreshed, get renewed. You got to do that once in a while." Before I even told him that we didn't have the money, he sent me some. And we did. It's still a mystery to me. How about you? That God is with us, connecting every moment and every day to holiness, sacred depth, meaning, and significance. It's true. It's true. Merry Christmas.